Welcome to my virtual diner. Pull up a seat at the counter. Get comfortable. Most shows talk about the people. I talk to them. This is Real America with me, Bridget Fedesi. All right, welcome back. In honor of the 4th of July next week, we wanted to talk about why we love America. My grandfather, who served in World War II, gave a speech on Veterans Day, November 11th, 1963, in Newport, Rhode Island. I read it often, not just because I miss him, but also because he knew what it was to be a soldier, to be in war, and to return. He was from a time that valued sacrifice, valued this country and the ideals upon which it was founded. We've come a long way from this kind of pride and humility. I share this so we don't forget. Veterans Day, November 11th, 1963. Bear with me, guys. This can be a tough one to get through. All right. Today is a day of the dead and a day of the living. It is a day somber with mourning and a day bright with expectant hopes. It is a day for looking sadly back into past sorrows and a day for peering courageously ahead to future challenges. It is a day consecrated to the memory of those brave men who perished in war that this country might survive, and it is a day which honors those men equally brave who, under a merciful providence, returned from war that this country might prosper. Of the dead warriors, I can say little. Think of them in their thousands. Their bodies lie buried on the slopes of the mist-shrouded mountains of Korea, under the waving palms of Iwo Jima, in the dank jungles of Guadalcanal, beneath the hot sands of North Africa and the fruitful orchards of Normandy. Or to go back to an earlier war, their graves stretch endlessly across the meadows of Chateau Thierry, along the banks of the Somme and of the Marne, and beneath the whispering trees of the Argonne forest. Other thousands there are who have no graves, for they drowned under the heaving waters of all the world's oceans, or they fell in fiery wreckage from the skies, leaving not a trace of their earthly passage. My fellow citizens, we seldom recall that our own Newport once groaned under the heel of an invader's boot. The trees of this island were cut down, its flocks and herds ravished, its people troubled and molested for 2 long years by an English garrison. Why, the house, which the British general occupied as his headquarters, still stands on the northeast corner of Pelham and Spring Streets. But that was all nearly 200 years ago, during the Revolutionary War, before our nation was born. Since that time, never has an invading army ringed our city or tramped through our streets or plundered our homes. We and all the rest of this country have been protected because times beyond numbering, brave men have stood on distant battlefields and stopped with their living flesh the bullets of our enemies. Compared with their massive sacrifice, how puny are our words of eulogy, how feeble our expressions of gratitude. In the final analysis, there are but 2 services we can render to the fallen heroes of our country. We can commend them to a mercy beyond this world, trusting that a hand infinitely more generous, incomparably more powerful than ours, will suitably recompense them for the deaths they died that this nation might live. And we can do all in our power to see to it that those men did not die in vain, that the flag they struggled and bled for will continue to wave over a land of life, of liberty, of the pursuit of happiness. Besides commemorating these soldiers who are now gloriously at rest, November the 11th honors also those veterans who are still engaged in the struggle of life. We survived war. We returned home, we married, we founded families, our sons and daughters, and in many cases our grandchildren surround us now. We were not fated to die for our country. Ours, from many angles, is a heavier responsibility to live for our country, to be good citizens, to do what we can to solve the problems that hinder its progress and hamper its growth. To face confidently the problems of the future, we may find inspiration and courage from the historical fact that we stand here in Newport on one of the thresholds of liberty. For Newport was the first seat of government for the state of Rhode Island and Providence plantations, and from a little room in the old courthouse on Washington Square emanated the first laws and proclamations which were the cornerstone of our constitutional rights. And from this little state, Rhode Island, standing as it did as one of the 13 original states, went many men and women into the vast sections of this verdant country to settle, to build a democracy, a free nation so large, so rich, so powerful that the likes of it has not been seen since the Roman Empire. As we stand here today and listen to the roll call of our honored dead, and gaze at the names of our loved ones inscribed on our war monuments, we knew that they too went forth from this cradle of liberty to fight and to die for the traditions and principles of a free, democratic America. The dead have done their task. They have paid the last full measure of devotion. They are at rest. For us, the living, the task is not yet finished. The struggle continues. We still must strive and labor and toil to make our country a land of life, of liberty, of happiness for ourselves, our children, and our children's children. My fellow citizens, twice within the memory of living men, we mounted a military machine which astounded the world. We blanketed the seas with ships and darkened the sky with the multitude of our planes and caused the very earth to tremble under the weight of our armaments. May our beloved country that displayed such unquestioned superiority in the art of war continue to show an equal capacity in the skills of peace. I thank you. Whew. Okay. There's been a lot of talk about war, World War in particular lately, and I do feel very lucky and grateful to be old enough to have known many members of the greatest generation, my grandfather, who fought in World War II. If I were younger, I might only know people who fought in pointless wars or wars that were fought under false pretenses. I wouldn't have been blessed to witness the pride a man has for fighting for a cause worth dying for. My grandfather enlisted in the Navy and was in Pearl Harbor when it was bombed, and then he fought in the Pacific for the duration of the war and was in Tokyo for the POW rescue operation. He was very lucky to get out alive, but many, many of his friends did not. His letters from that time at war were stunning, and I read them often they're stunning for what they endured, but even more striking is the way in which they endured it, with dignity and honor and a clear-eyed surrender to life and God that was wise beyond their years. After being bombed in Pearl Harbor, my grandfather wrote home, "I certainly hope that everybody isn't a nervous stew back home. It appears that way from the letters we've been getting, and we really don't see any reason for it. Mankind has always been the same and always will be. Life is funny, but life is also wonderful and glorious, even in this world of today." He was 21 when he wrote that, 21 years old. In another letter, he frets that he sounds too full of self-pity after telling a story about being blown off a destroyer, losing friends, and being rescued from the Pacific. The overall tone of the letters from that time is different than today, earnest, and most importantly, not whiny in the least. The entire culture we live in, and I'm guilty of this too, so I'm not throwing stones, is prone to whine and complain because we're spoiled and frankly soft. I asked my friend Dan Holloway why it's almost impossible to find positive stories about America. And he said, because we've been conditioned by comfort to look for struggle. Struggle used to come naturally, so we treasured comfort as a goal or achievement. Now we define our experience not by our successes, but by our shortcomings. And he continued, and people don't really understand what America is anyways. It's not our geography, it's not our government, and it's goddamn sure not our politicians. America is the simple idea that individual liberty and personal entrepreneurship are the ultimate inoculation to tyrannical bullshit. And because to me, those are the most important things in the world, I will always love this country. I wish Dan could have been here tonight to say that himself, but he couldn't. And I couldn't have said it better than him, honestly. And now I want to hear from you. I've left this quite open tonight, America. I want to know what you love about this country of ours. What are you grateful for? And get your list ready while we go over some quick housekeeping. So, just some boring stuff that we've got to go over. If you want to be called on, you need to be on Zoom on camera, and you need to virtually raise your hand by clicking the reactions button. If you aren't on Zoom and want to be part of our virtual live audience right now or in the future, click the link in the description below to get the Zoom link, or go to tway.tv/Bridget Zoom. The Zoom link is the same every week, every time, so put it in your calendar and save it, and then come join us every week. The voice of God you will hear is cousin Maggie. Say hello, Maggie.
Hello, everyone.
Maggie, many of you already know her. She's my cousin and co-producer. We make lots of stuff together, like our other shows, Dumpster Fire, Walk-Ins Welcome, and all the other content you can find at Fetacy.com. That's also where you should go subscribe if you want to get notifications for our shows and when we're going live, etc. Maggie will be monitoring the chat. If you have something to say and you raise your hand, she's going to help make sure if you have something to say, raise your hand, and she will guide you. She's going to help make sure we stay on topic. And we can't guarantee we'll get to everyone, but we will do our very best. Everyone knows my number one rule is don't be a dick. So please don't act like a rude customer whose eggs are over medium instead of over easy. I get it, but don't be a dick about it. Before we get into our love for America, I want to take a quick word from our sponsor, Quest, who makes this all possible for us, as well as 2A. Are you dealing with an HMO like I am? It can be hard to navigate. And if I want to get any sort of testing done to ensure I'm making my health a priority, I have to wait weeks for an appointment to see my doctor and then get a referral, jump through all these hoops and wait weeks more for an appointment with a specialist I needed to see. It's like a million steps. But Quest helps you cut through all the insurance nonsense and get the tests you need when you need them. Quest offers over 150 of the same tests trusted by doctors, including diagnostics for specific ailments like STDs, chronic conditions like heart, liver, and kidney disease, as well as testing that is almost never covered by health insurance like fertility and advanced women's hormone testing. Quest also offers broad packages of tests that go way beyond the standard tests you typically get in an annual medical checkup visit. Concierge medicine and functional medicine doctors charge thousands of dollars for these types of workups, and Quest offers them for the price of a night out on the town, and your health and well-being are worth it, and then you can just pop on into these people with your results. Getting in to see your doctor can take months. Instead, in just a few days, you can get an annual health profile from Quest that includes all the basics, plus biometrics like height, weight, and blood pressure. And when you finally go to see your doctor, you can share your results with him or her easily. Visit questhealth.com and use the discount code REALMAY25 and get 20% off your entire purchase. That's questhealth.com, code REALMAY25 for 20% off. If you're watching this on YouTube, there is a link in the description below. All righty, America. Whew. We are, I mean, it's tough to even find like good statistics about America. Maggie, how are you feeling about America today?
Oh, I love America. Look, I mean, we grew up in a time where it was still like proud to be an American. I love America.
And we did grow up with grandparents so Maggie and I are actual cousins. We don't just call her cousin Maggie. That would be weird. But we grew up with grandparents who were insanely also proud of America. Both my grandmother and my grandfather were in Pearl Harbor when it was bombed. And they just had it. They came from that whole, even before I came up here and was doing this, Jaron was showing me his grandfather's stuff that he got passed down to him, and it was just a different generation, man. They were just built differently. It's really wild, and I don't want to lose it. Like that whole generation is starting, they're mostly gone, and there are some that are still hanging in there, but I feel like because we grew up with the benefit of like the living in the shadow of the greatest generation, truly, I take it for granted how much of a benefit I got from living with their class and grace and experience. I mean, our grandfather never talked about the war at all. What little we know, I think you managed to get him to talk about it a little when you did a school project later in life. But what little we've gleaned about, he never bragged or anything. My uncle, he went and did some research and found all these really interesting, cool things that he should have been bragging about, but never did. Nothing. We really, most of what we know is from his letters and from like Navy records that my uncle has tracked down.
Yeah.
And whatever documentary Maggie made and lost.
No.
Just kidding.
We recorded them on tape, both of our grandparents talking about their lives.
They were just, I mean, they were in the Great Depression kids. So they just had it is that weird circular soft times make hard men. It's just so interesting to me. Do we have people who have their hands raised?
We do. We have got one right now. It's our friend Max, so we can bring him up. Let's see.
Get those hands up, folks.
Yeah, we
want to
hear what you love about America, guys.
Is it like, are people embarrassed to talk about what they don't make me tell stories of traveling to other countries, guys? Because I will spend this whole time talking about that time I pooped in a hole in the middle of India.
You did? Did you really poop a hole in India?
I mean, there's nothing else but just holes in the dirt when you're on a bus in India and you stop at the stop in the middle of the night.
The only other country I've been to is Mexico, and the roads are pretty bad. Mexico.
What do you love about America, Max? You've got a flag behind you. Did you Go on.
I grew up in Idaho. I'm in Idaho still. But I like the First Amendment. Like, I just like the fact that, you know, you have like insane people on MSNBC, and then you have like insane people like Alex Jones. It's just like a whole variety of thoughts and opinions. I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, we were saying this in our little teaser for this show that it truly is like the freedom to be a dumbass is something that we all take for granted. You know, we have the First Amendment is amazing. I would rather be able to see what people are thinking than have to have them hiding it or feeling like they're saying thinking one thing and presenting another, and that weird like preference falsification that it happens even in our society with the First Amendment. But it's pretty cool that we can just scroll so much social media, particularly on something like X. You can get a pretty good idea of who they are, where you don't know everything about them, but you can get a sense of what they are thinking. And some people certainly don't hide it.
I thought it was hilarious how liberals were doing the whole like anti-King march, and it was just like, whatever. It's like they have the right to do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, they like
if we had a king, you probably wouldn't be doing that march.
Exactly. And then the conservatives were making fun of them the next day, like, oh yeah, it worked. There's no king now. Like there was never a king. It's like, I don't know. It's just, I think, I don't know. I think people, I mean, the fact is you have the right to do that. And I mean, or, people have the right to call Elon Musk a Nazi, which is just goofy, but whatever.
Did you grow up with anyone from the Greatest Generation?
I don't think.
You're pretty young, right? So your grandparents are like boomers?
All my grandparents had passed away, so I never met any of like my great grandparents or grandparents. So I think all I know is like boomers and Gen X.
Yeah, we've been watching there's a new documentary that was out on the Vietnam War, and I was talking to my husband about just how World War II is really kind of the last time that these guys came home as heroes. And then
Yeah.
it changed so drastically with Vietnam, and they were sent over there. And we were like, what? I will watch documentary after documentary, and I still do not understand at all what we were doing there. I feel like it's,
Oh, Vietnam.
yeah, just no matter how much I learn about it, the more
It was, I
it's
think it was
wild.
just, it was a panic over communism, I think.
And
And they just,
and then
yeah.
we had, a lot of the younger people I talked to, and this is why I really understand. It's weird because I straddle kind of both, and so I also lived through the weapons of mass destruction,
Yeah.
and there are generations that really only knew that. That was
Yeah.
like all they knew. And if all you knew was that, you would think every war was pointless. And I
Yeah.
knew that, but I also knew of wars that arguably, I mean, there's still, I think people are trying to argue even this, but there that arguably were not pointless, that
Yeah.
were for something greater than really all of us. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it would be like to only have that one perspective on war.
Well,
And
when I grew up, um, in my area, we were pro Iraq war. It was like a mindset of like, oh, we got to get all the terrorists.
right,
But I mean, looking back, you're like, well, yeah, it's just an endless, it's like whack-a-mole, you know? It's like
right.
you take one out and the next one pops up, and it's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess like you're looking back, you're like, well, maybe we went about it the wrong way.
Right.
But I mean, there was somewhat of a purpose. It just wasn't like executed correctly.
Or it's, yeah, I mean, hindsight's always
Yeah.
2020. And then,
There
yeah,
wasn't like an exit strategy, I guess. I don't know.
and I feel like people are really disillusioned about the way that our vets are treated, obviously, when
Yeah.
they come home. So they come back, and it's got to be, they're not getting this hero's welcome, they're like that my grandfather
Yeah.
received.
There's not like the definitive like the war ended, we won. It's
Right.
like, well, we blew up this one terrorist group, but there will probably be another one next month.
Yeah, and you
It's
look
like
at
there's no end to it.
yeah, and you look at the suicide rates and what it does to families, and these
Yeah.
guys are gone for months at a time, and then they're coming back, and if they come back, and so I really, as this kind of conversation has blown up recently around what we're doing in Iran, and I find it very challenging to know anything. And I really do understand. I have like so much compassion for people who are just anti-war at all
Yeah.
price, like
No,
at the
I
end of
think
my grandfather's speech, like he said, it's like, I hope we can be
yeah.
responsible with the peace as well. But
Yeah, no, I think everyone has Middle East fatigue for sure. It's
yeah,
like it it's a mess over there. It's like how do you even solve that, you know?
yeah.
So,
And is it up to us to solve?
yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
All right, Max, I
So.
appreciate you. Happy 4th. Thank you for chiming
Yeah.
in and
Woo.
raising your hand.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
We've got some more hands.
We've got some more hands. Next time I'm going to bring up Sean.
All right. They got Unshy. Hi, Sean.
Hello, Bridget.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Trying not to be too nervous. I've been following you for a long time. I really enjoyed all your content. So
Thank you. Don't
happy
be
to be
nervous.
here.
Just breathe. I was
I
nervous to read that speech, like more nervous than anything I've done in years.
Right. I love the most about America is like your personal freedom and your individual liberties. I am a textbook Gen X kid from a latchkey divorced family. Mom left when we were 6. I roamed the neighborhood like we were feral dogs, and my bike took me everywhere. Like my bike is like the sole like vehicle of my whole freedom. I could get away from any trouble I was in. I could get away from home, get away from school, get away from everything with my bike. And so that just leads to, a life of the way I was raised by my dad to value individualism, and, my dad instilling in us that we could do anything or be anything. It was up to us to choose who we were. And so I really ran with that, and my 20s were a blur, a blackout, and all kinds of madness. And then, I get sober in my 30s, and, here I am. And I still, to this day, well, if I need to unwind, if I need to take a break, or my safe space is on my bike. I get on my bike and go on my bike.
That's very American.
I had stories from my grandparents and my great uncles that served in wars. My grandfather was always disappointed that he couldn't go to World War II. He was one of 5 boys raised during the Depression, and all his brothers went to World War II. They all came back, which is a miracle. But he was a fireman. He's Detroit, grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. So he's a Detroit fireman. They wouldn't take Detroit firemen. My grandmother didn't know until after my grandfather remarried. So my step-grandmother didn't know until after she passed away that she'd received a Purple Heart as a nurse in Korea. Never knew she was a nurse in Korea. My grandfather wouldn't have anyone talk of war in the house and things like that. So all these sorts of things you discover years down the road about your family. But I love my grandfather dearly. But there's many things about the way I live my life that it wouldn't make sense to him. He wouldn't understand at all. But I attribute most of that to just the way my father raised me, being able to have the freedom to be an individual. I understand, I haven't done a lot of traveling, but I understand other parts of the world, personal freedoms and individual liberties are not something you get to enjoy. And so I feel like a lot of times we can get caught up in our day-to-day and lose sight of just how much personal freedom and individual liberty you can have for yourself here in America.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
It's so crazy too, even as a woman. One of the things that's and this is not to be like, but have you been there? One of the things that you cannot possibly fathom until you're actually a Western woman in another one of these countries is just the repression you feel as a woman in a true patriarchal system. When I was in Egypt, it was just like head covered, long sleeve, body covered, eyes averted the whole time. And you feel it was oppressive. And it made me really recognize how absolutely insanely lucky I was to be born in America as a Western woman. It's just wild how free and truly just luck of the draw that it was. And it could have rolled a lot of other different ways where I wouldn't be able to be such a jackass in public.
Thank you, Chuck.
One of the things I did the last couple of years, I'm not going to get a long story about how I was affected by the pandemic and how I was an essential worker and all that stuff is nonsense. It was terrible. But anyway, I made a change, and in that change, I got done with school again, and in between my career change, I had, a lot of time to myself. And so I grabbed the dog and I hopped in the truck and I just went across America as much as I could. In a 1 year span, I spent 10 weeks going over the Continental Divide 5 different times, put 30,000 miles on my truck, and literally most nights I slept in the truck with my dog. And for me, that was like, I'd always just been working to pay bills and working to pay off debt and working just to work and to paycheck, and be like, to get to a point where somehow I was blessed with this opportunity to just leave and do it and not worry about whether or not I had it planned, whether or not I had a place to stay, or whether or not I had it all figured out. It was just, me and the dog and just drive. And I drove all over the place, went all a bunch of national parks, and just really embraced that idea of, that American individualism. I went all the way down to Route 66 and all kinds of stuff like that. And just about that a lot. In fact, I think I might have another 2 weeks in the next couple of weeks, so I might be heading back out west. But
the West is, this is another thing that I love about America is our roads. It's just, we have such an amazing road system to be able to get around this massive country. And again, it's another thing that unless you've really driven around America and seen how different every part of America is, you can't really conceive of its vastness. And honestly, considering how big and different we are, I know we're very divided and we talk about this all the time, but I think we get along like remarkably well, actually, when you zoom out and look at it from a bigger perspective. For the most part, I know things are fraught always with tension, but that also seems to be like this defining feature of America, is that we're a big family that fights a lot. But I'm hoping that we can remember that we love each other. That's something I think that I worry we're losing a little bit in the everyone who disagrees with me is evil rhetoric.
Right. And, that feeling that while my family's been here for a long time, Irish last name, Irish family from the Irish neighborhoods in Southwest Detroit, which is now a Mexican-American neighborhood. My mother's side of the family came over on a boat from Windsor. And so that's how they came to America. They paid a nickel to go on the ferry and get to America. So while my family is obviously an immigrant family, like a lot of people from a long, long, long time ago, it's still something I think about. And it's still something I think that like everybody who's an American deserves to enjoy what it means to be an American. And anybody who can actually just get here and contribute deserves that American experience as well. You got to get here somehow and feel it, see it for yourself, and we need as many people as we can get in this country. I'm not going to make a long discussion about that, but we're running out of people. So we need to let
I'm like, and then we get into we veer into the debate portion of this. We were doing great, and then it steered into an immigration debate, and now the chat is at each other's throat.
I'm keeping us on track. There are people with their hands raised who want to talk about what they love.
Thank you so much. It was nice to meet you.
See you
again. And please, there's got to be a way to get Sammy Flaps and Folds on here for us, please.
We do our best to try. I will try.
I love Sam. She's welcome anytime.
Noted Sammy Flaps and Folds.
That's her own fault.
For people who don't know, Sammy Flaps and Folds is a nickname amongst our dumpster fire fan base that she gave herself, to be fair. And she was part of the show when I lived in Los Angeles, and then we moved, and she's got, a real job. And so we'll have to get her on.
We have a short clip on the origin of Sammy Flaps and Folds on our main YouTube channel if you ever want to go look that up. Yeah, I think definitely what you were talking about, just the size of the country and kind of how big it is and how still how cohesive it is. I love that. Okay, I'm going to bring up a new person here, Season.
That's a pretty name.
Yes. Spotlight.
Let's see.
What a gorgeous name.
Hi. I'm trying not to have an epileptic seizure because my screen is like going crazy. Zoom has decided to go psycho. I think that
China doesn't like us talking about what we love about America.
Yeah, that they're monitoring me right now, and somebody's messing with me.
China's like, no, they can't be talking about what they love about this country. We're gonna shut this shit down.
It's just like flashing, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna just stay calm. I'd say and plus, I'm listening to everybody, and I have like food in the oven because I have 3 teenagers right now that I take care of, and that are my, offspring. I'm doing well. I'm not like the 1.2 or whatever we're at with non-replacement rate. I had 3, so I did my part.
Thank you.
So what I love about it is like what a lot of other people have said too, is like the First Amendment and like the freedom around that. But what I've really enjoyed as a mother is imbuing the American spirit into my children and passing all of this along to them. So it's like what I really love about America, and this is what I've taught my kids to do, is like if someone tells you something, your first question is why? Why?
Yeah, like a toddler.
Why is that a thing? And that goes all the way up and I work for a government job, local government, and it's just as bad as what you see in federal level. Like I have so many stories. But like even on the local level, there's just an endless BS, just rotating BS of people trying to preserve their jobs. And so when I talk to my kids about just about anything, the question is always like why? Why is it this way? Go ahead and ask questions, because I'm also Gen X. You guys have already covered that, but I also roamed around. I'm the tip end of Gen X, 1978. So I'm like at the upper threshold, but I still, every answer to the kids is like, well, I taught that to myself. How do you do that? Figure it out. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how to do everything, and I'm not going to be there to tell you how to do everything. So figure it out like I had to. But that's the one thing I've really enjoyed, is like seeing it through their eyes has been really fun, because they're just like they ask questions all the time. They're not afraid to. And like you were saying about being a woman here, I'm so excited to raise girls here, and just like we talk about everything, and we try to just like look at steel man the arguments, and we try and look at both sides of everything and try and be as objective as we can. They're being raised in a Christian household, but we're still like, they go to a classical school, so they're learning Latin and handwriting, but at the same time, that Christian school is also having them do like debate and having them look at both sides and like, do you really believe this and why? And I just think it's great that we have like a country where we have all this freedom of speech where we can do that, because not everything else flows from that.
Yeah.
Like we have a YouTube channel that's all education based too, because we start off every video, like my husband and I, what do you want to learn about? Okay, let's learn about it. Let's do a video about it. And the kids have done it too. They've been on the channel too. So we've kind of just taught them over time, like just always ask questions. And if something smells funny or it's wrong, it's probably something going on under, that you need to find out more about.
Yep.
And it's just been like really fun to watch all of these, because right now it's like all under attack.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I pulled my kids out of public schools is because I didn't want them to grow up thinking America sucks.
Yeah.
Like, there's lots of things you can see there where it sucks, but like where they're at now, there's none of their teachers are doing any politics in the classroom. It's all just like history. It's just the way it should be. And it's fun to watch them just play around with like the First Amendment, especially now that they're teenagers, and we're playing around with cussing and fun things like that. But it's just really fun to be a mom. My favorite thing about being in America is the First Amendment, because every single thing flows from that, and the freedom that we have to move around, discuss things, raise our kids the way we want. Like you can't homeschool in Germany, like it's illegal. So like you also have options here, like for education and stuff like that, which has been really important. And one other side before I'm done, because I don't want to take up everybody's time. My grandfather also grew up during the Great Depression. My grandmother worked in a factory and made starters for the planes. And she used to talk about it all the time. My grandpa used to sit around and bitch and moan about FDR, and that was in the 90s. Man did not like FDR. Did not like FDR. Grandma didn't like FDR. None of my grandparents liked FDR. And I was raised like conservative. It's really weird because I'm looking at how everything is moving politically. And I'm like, oh, so you're just coming around to how I was raised now. Because we were just raised to just like always be very, very like, I don't know, cautious about either party. We were raised conservative, but we didn't believe in unions. It's really weird. Like I was raised a really weird Republican way that now the Republican Party has come around to. Like we were working class, but like we didn't believe in unions. I don't know how to explain it, but it's interesting because like my grandparents, and they were all unionized. They were all in unions. Like they all fought. Both of my grandparents fought in World War II. My grandfather was 16 and lied about his age.
Wow.
To go into the Navy and saw the Rock of Gibraltar on like his 17th birthday.
Wow.
Because that's just what they wanted to do. They wanted to fight for their country. It's like you said, it's a completely different mindset. And I grew up hearing all of those stories all the time. Like in our house, they did talk about war, as in, this is why we have to preserve this stuff, because I didn't want you guys to have to go back. I don't want anyone to have to ever do what we had to do, all that stuff. So I don't know. I think it's because of the way that Gen X was raised that like we have like maybe the last dregs of an idea about America that's different than like what my kids even are having. Because even my kids they're going to look at things different than their peers. And I see it all the time because of the schooling that they're having and the way that we're raising them. So I don't know. Hopefully we can preserve everything that we love, as time goes on. But
is your real name Season? Because that's a weird name to have have
Yes,
conservative
it is
parents.
It is Season.
That's like a very hippie name for conservative
well, there
parents.
was an actor on TV at the time named Season Hubley, and my mom was going to name me this really lame, dumb name, and then my aunt was like, "You should name her Season instead," and she was like, "Oh, that would be great." So that's how I got my name.
Got it.
Both my parents are military. My dad was in the Guard, my mom was in the Navy, so they're like as boring 70s as it comes. But I definitely live into this. Whenever I was commenting a long time ago, it was Thad's wife, and I know you had like a laugh about that, whether you remembered it or not. I don't know. But I'm Thad's wife whenever it comes up, and I try to do it as a running joke in the comments now. But, yeah, that's my name, and I definitely fit the name very, very well. So.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. It was nice to meet you, and thank you for
Nice
chiming in. We'll see you
Thank
around.
you for making me laugh.
Yeah.
Thank you for making me laugh every week. Like, it's been really, really helpful to just like watch, and like I'll be laughing, and then the kids will come downstairs, and then they'll be like, "What are you?" And then they just turn around. They're like, "Oh, she's watching."
She's watching that crazy lady.
And then they always
on
come down to the Mexican weather report. They all gather around my phone to laugh in the kitchen when I'm watching it, and they all laugh. It's so funny. But thank you for what you do, because it does actually brighten my week, and it keeps me laughing through all of the nonsense. And I really appreciate that. Because I always tell my kids a sense of humor is how you get through life. So.
Yeah, that's how I've gone through it.
But thank you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you,
Susan. I liked what she said. I thought, because that was one of the things that I had written down too, is that I love that independence of spirit, ingenuity, and rebellion are kind of built into the DNA of the country.
Yeah.
Like, I really think that's something that's unique.
Jaron and I talk about this a lot too, just like balancing freedom with risk. Yeah. You know, it's very, you want to, and the younger generations are so much more like risk averse because they're a little bit more bubble wrapped, and they had parents who are free range who are like, I'm not going to do that to my kids, not realizing it was actually probably really good. And even as a parent, I see just balancing like, okay, how do we manage this? And, you know, even like driving, you know, we talk about this all the time. Someone did the cost benefit analysis of what is the threshold where you can build a car that nobody ever dies in, and it's a very expensive car. But if we lower that, there's the risk that people are taking to even drive and allow people to drive, which is crazy.
At 16.
I mean, we are a very risk tolerant nation, and it's another thing that I hope we don't lose. You know, this is why I was so glad the coddling of the American mind guys were really embraced.
All right, well, I'm going to bring up, we've got several hands, so I'm going to bring up Emily next.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for chiming in.
I'm also an avid camper, so I've also pooped in a lot of holes. So I was trying to think of like what I love best about America, and it's easy. Actually, like obviously would add to my list everything Susan said, everything everybody said. But I think one of the things that's just always felt like true in my soul, and just kind of how I think of the world, and I guess also my religious beliefs, is just the sense of natural rights. And there's this really great quote by Ronald Reagan, and while I was waiting, I looked it up so I didn't have to paraphrase it horribly. So he was asked a question about how the US has a constitution and the Soviet Union has a constitution. So aren't we basically the same? So he was talking about the difference and between actually our constitution and all others. And he says, this is what it tells the entire difference. All those other constitutions are documents that say, we, the government, allow the people the following rights. And our constitution says, we, the people, allow the government the following privileges and rights. We give our permission to government to do the things that it does. And that's the whole story of the difference. Why we're unique in the world, and why no matter what our troubles may be, we're going to overcome.
I love that.
I do too. And I think, and it's true. I mean, the whole thing starts with that, we the people. It's all about us owning the rights. So they're our rights. We choose to give them away. And so to me, that's so uniquely American and beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite thing.
I love that.
I agree. I had something similar written down where it was like the vision and deliberation that went into creating a country from scratch, and like the hope and aspiration kind of embedded in that.
Yeah.
Like they were striving for something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so.
God, sorry.
It's so interesting to me that like it hasn't been perfect, you know. When I was even trying to write my monologue, I was thinking I'm like, oh, am I just brushing past like all the stuff that really the younger generations are like, this is why we're horrible. But it's like, yeah, but all nations have their sins, all nations have their stains, all nations have their things that they've overcome and their regrets. And I just feel like in the overcorrection to look at all the things we did wrong, we're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater a bit and forgetting what you mentioned, which is that we are ultimately the captain of this ship. We, the people, they are in charge of its destiny collectively and individually. It's a very interesting experiment. And I know that a lot of people are like, all democracies end after 250 years because XYZ, and there's this cascading thing. And I would like to think that if we knew that, we would be able to figure out how to avoid that. If we had some of this information. I also like to think that we won't create our own demise with AI, but here we go. So maybe it is just cyclical, but I hope not. I hope that we get another 250 years.
I hope so too. I'm an optimist. I do want to add one more thing too, because you were talking about the different wars we fought and how some of them have felt so pointless. And I remember having a thought after we left Afghanistan about, and everyone was talking about what was even the point of that 20 years. And I just remember thinking, for 20 years, think of the tens of thousands of little girls who learned to read. 20 years is long enough for a girl to complete school. And that, no matter what happens to her in her life, that will never be taken away. They will never forget how to read. They'll never forget that mind-opening sense that they got. And I mean, I don't know, is that worth it? I have no idea, but
it wasn't all in vain.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was. Maybe we didn't get the result we had hoped for, but also we gave the people a taste, and maybe maybe we planted a seed. And maybe that's ultimately what we can do.
When I was writing that too, is even when I was reading it, I was like, pointless probably wasn't the right word for me to use talking about it, because I actually don't, who's to say what's pointless and what's not, but it's more me paraphrasing the way they're viewed as pointless. And it's like the pointless, you hear this kind of pointless war rhetoric. And I know men and women who have come back from the pointless wars and felt like they weren't pointless. So it's not really up to us to decide that either, on behalf of people who have served. And I think it varies from individual to individual.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Emily. All right. We've got 3 more hands right now, so let's get to Ben.
Hi. I apologize if you hear my dog barking in the back. I think someone dared to
How dare you,
on the
sir?
sidewalk
Dog barking? We will not have that on this very fancy program.
Yeah, I'm bringing it down.
This is the joy of doing this, is having kids. I love the kids in the background and the dogs and life, like life. Let's bring it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with what everyone said thus far. I think for me, what I love about America and just being American is that it's not just one thing. That, I'm a Southern California born and raised, and even that, people hear that, and for better or for worse, they think they have a thought of who you are right away. And I'm like, well, I live up the street from the Ronald Reagan Library, so I don't it's as red as you can possibly imagine where I live, despite being Southern California. And I think that's, having traveled overseas and talked to people from other countries, you're American, and they instantly think, again, one way or the other, it's a singular thing. And it's really hard to explain to someone who hasn't been here, where I feel like California, to a certain extent, it's almost a microcosm of America too, because being a Californian or even a Southern Californian isn't even one thing.
Yeah.
So I just think how different we can be, but also I think how much change you're not stuck in one phase of life. You're not stuck with being one thing. You can be born to very rich family in one area of the country, that's not necessarily where you're going to be 20, 30, 40 years from now, which I've seen a ton with friends, family. And I just think it's so fascinating. I'm just so grateful that we're not just, your lot in life is not how necessarily what you're born to, that you can go and make, take that risk, go make something of yourself, go do something with that you've been given.
That's why I wanted to start this show too, is that I do think, and of course I'm guilty of it, especially on Dumpster Fire, because hyperbole requires certain broad strokes in order to be hilarious sometimes. But I've often said this, even talking about post 2016 Trump. There were all these celebrities and they were like, let's go to the mythical Midwest and talk to the Trump voters. I'm like, you could have just gone to Valencia, or like, you didn't need to leave the state. Like, I don't know why you're acting like they couldn't possibly be in California, which has more Trump voters because of just the population size than any other state. So it's funny to me how we can, and we are all guilty of this. And, media and social media do not. That's why I love these platforms, and I love Two-Way, and I love what Mark and all of them are doing with the Daily Show, with their show, because every single person in America has such an individual experience. And you can, like you said, I was born in New York City. I moved all over the country and ended up in Los Angeles. Now I'm in Texas. I've lived in Utah. It's just like, there's so many different parts of America, and I didn't even know I was an outdoorsy kind of girl until I moved to the West. It was just something that wasn't really necessarily, so you get to discover entire aspects of your soul and being just by going to a different part of America. It's often just traveling the world too, but in particular, that I've had that experience in this country where you go and live somewhere else and you're like, wow, I didn't know I knew how to surf, but I never had the opportunity. And so it is very cool to be able to exercise all those different aspects of your personality, or discover parts of yourself that you may not have even ever known existed.
Yeah. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And love the been following Dumpster Fire since day one. So
thank you. Well, you're one of the few. We always I hope we don't find your sacred cows. It's like our audience who's maintained, like, who's been with us forever, they are so Gen X in spirit, even if they're not Gen X, because even if they don't agree with me, they're not like, I'm out of here, I'm done with you, this is where you lost me. And everyone's so precious now. It's so funny. I can't tell, like, I'll see so many things from friends of mine and I'll be scrolling and I'm like, I don't really agree with that. And then I'll just keep scrolling, or keep listening. I'm not like, you're dead to me.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you.
But this is also something I love about America. Is that we should be able to do this. Agree to disagree, instead of being like, you're dead to me.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you being able to handle our humor.
Yeah.
Or not for everyone.
I've said multiple times, women! And no one understands what I'm doing. And then
Do you know people yell that at me when I'm on stage doing comedy? Like, I'll be standing on stage at Mothership and Fat in the big room, and someone will go, women, from like the back of the room. Like, this is amazing. If that's my like catchphrase, I'm fine.
You're like a sports team or something.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben. All right. Next up, we're going to go with Philip.
I'm still waiting for someone to be like, guns.
Well, you might have just taken the words right out of his mouth.
Bridget and Maggie.
Hello.
Two things I love about America.
Where's American as apple pie?
Exactly. I think resilience and choices. And I think resilience is a function of the proportion of the population that grew up on stories of Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett, participated in the Boy Scouts and played football.
Mm.
So as long as that remains a large proportion of the population, the inherent stories that we have that create the psyche for the country uh, can withstand a socialist mayor of New York. Justice, I think also the fact that all of those newscasters in New York City who've been promoting socialism now get to live under it is karma and justice. I think that will be awesome to
He
see.
might not win.
Well, that's true. That'll be interesting to see. Either way, it's a win.
Yeah.
If he loses, New York survives. If he wins and New York crumbles and all those Anderson Coopers have to move to Springfield, Ohio, that would be awesome.
Here's something I will say I love about America, and it's New York. And if there's anything that's resilient in this country, it is that cockroach of a city. God bless it for all its ups and downs. Even when I go there, I still feel like it is my homeland in some sense because I was born there, and I think I just recognize all the smells and sounds when I'm there.
Sure.
But man, that city is we saw it post 9/11. It is the resilience of New York is not something to be underestimated.
Well, it'll definitely be a great test if they can withstand. I mean, there's a city council, so he's not a socialist dictator, so he won't be able to do everything he's claiming he wants to be able to do. I think
where
probably
are you located?
So I was born in Texas.
Hmm.
Yep, raised in Houston.
Okay.
And shout out to all the Houston, my homies. But then worked in radio for 8 years. So I moved around the country working at radio stations. I was in
Cool.
Lubbock, El Paso, Dallas, St. Louis, and Portland. And now, after a career, 20 years in Virginia, I worked at CarMax and Carfax on the East Coast, and then bought an 80-acre farm on top of a mountain in Oregon. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
I love Oregon.
Nice.
So
So I'm
gorgeous.
living the life up here on top of
done
the
some
mountain with
time
my
in
goats
Oregon.
and my dogs and my chickens and geese. And
Amazing.
yeah,
And that's the amazing thing about America. You can have a
choices
career. Yeah.
for
Choices.
sure. Lots of choices. And I think what makes us strong, and we've talked a little bit about this before, but the founding fathers had read Aristotle.
Mm-hmm.
They understood the cycle of governments,
Mm-hmm.
that the only way to have a stable government is with the consent of the governed. And how do you codify the consent of the governed? Their idea was frequent elections, give the power to the House of Representatives, elect them every 2 years, and keep the constituencies small enough that grassroots campaigning can elect a representative, which is no longer the case after 1929, after the Permanent Apportionment Act was passed and the ratio of representation went from 30,000 to 800,000. So now money controls the House, but that wasn't the original design.
We had someone on Walk-ins Welcome talking about this actually.
And I think Philip mentioned it in one of our other Real Americas too.
Yeah.
Earlier, yeah.
Um,
So Article 1, Section 2, Part 3 of the Constitution. Everybody go read it and then complain to your congressman about the House rules that lets them keep their 435 seats, which there's no reason why it should only be 435. When they passed the bill, they said there wasn't room for enough chairs in the room. That was their excuse.
We will keep on harping on this. Well, we have a couple more people.
yeah, we've got 2 more people I
Thanks.
want to try and get to.
Okay.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you,
guys.
Philip. Have a good day.
Bye.
Enjoy
You
the
too.
goats. God, Oregon's so gorgeous. That's the other thing. America is so beautiful.
Gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. I loved how mad everyone, even if people were like, no, the government shouldn't have this much land. And it's not a debate I want to start on this show tonight because I can see kind of arguments for both sides of it. But I was just so happy to see everyone being like, screw you, you're not selling that. Americans get like so mad about their beautiful land.
All right, I'm going to bring up James.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, James.
Hi, James.
So I like the fact that no matter how bad our politicians are, they just can't kill it, right? They just can't kill the country. They just can't do it. You know, and I like the fact that we invented rock and roll. And I like the fact that we invented blue jeans, you know, and I like the fact that, you know, the most American experience that I engage in is tailgating at a New York Giants football game, where I have made tremendously close friends barbecuing in an asphalt parking lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like
So American.
it's the most American thing you can do is tailgate at a professional football game.
Yeah.
Or like a college football game.
Yeah, but I haven't done the college thing, so that could probably rank up there.
I think it's very similar.
It probably.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think the big thing that I'm most grateful for is the fact that our Constitution sets the three branches of government at odds with one another. So it's just not possible for them. I mean, try as they might, they've tried to squash free speech and they got slapped down, right? We've seen institutional graft and it comes out, right? It just, and you know, even with this stuff that's going on in New York City, the end of the day, somebody had an idea, they went out and knocked on doors or talked to people and sold their idea. Now I disagree with the idea. And you know, the other thing I like is so this is a little controversial. I like the fact that people are emotional about politics and are emotional about America in absence of actual accurate information on how America works. You know, the idea that, you know, I do financial advisory. I spend a lot of time talking people off the ledge about things that they think the government is going to do. Like, you know, it doesn't really work that way, right? So, and I like the fact that you can, you know, in the area where I work, there's a number of Syrian immigrants who are citizens who run the small sandwich shop, you know, the candy store, etc., gas station. And, you know, you talk to these folks and I talk to them about politics in America. And it's funny, they all like Trump and
all of them
and are loud about
all of them.
Loud about it. But the thing that's most interesting is I'm getting just so you know, if that blanked out, that was my company's emergency notification system trying to get a hold of me for absolutely no reason other than to see if it works or that I might say something subversive. Who knows?
They're like, but shut him down.
Should be quiet now. They like, you know, they all like Trump. They're all loud about it. And the thing that renews my spirit for the country is when I talk to those people, they recognize the thing that we've all forgotten.
Right.
There is no better time in the history of the world or place on the planet Earth to be alive than right here and right now.
Yeah, my husband and I talk about this all the time.
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
It's just an unbelievable fact. And they get it, right? So it's really renewing when you can chat with folks like that. Anyway, love the show. I love the whole two-way thing.
Oh, he just froze on us.
He's gone.
Oh, you froze for a second, James. Thank you. Okay, and we've got one more person here. I'm gonna bring up Chris.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
There we go.
This has been such a uplifting episode.
Yes.
I just want to say that to be on a Zoom with all these patriots is making me even more patriotic. It's fantastic. It's just interesting because I deal with smaller companies around the country for almost 38 years, and to see the grit and the ingenuity and the excitement of all races of people in 38 years, I've never had one problem with race, and so in my work. So, because at my level, if you're a plumber locally and you only want to hire Polish plumbers and the Lithuanian plumbers better, they're going to go work for your competition next door. So they don't care if you're trans, if you're gay.
Yeah.
Come and wear a dress. Can you pick up the phone? Can you be here at 9 o'clock? So I urge everyone to get out of the Fortune 500s, because all of the stuff you hear about the country falling apart. At my level, I'm dealing with most of the people they work for small companies. All this stuff doesn't exist.
Yeah.
All the stuff you hear about at the street level, I have various clients and they're all entrepreneurs. So I urge people to go work for a company with no human resource department.
Yep.
That's how you know you're the right size. You're dealing with the owner. So, like I said, I've never had any problem, but the sentiment in the country among the entrepreneurs, I have never had more people come to me wanting to set up a business since Trump got reelected. In my whole over 3 decades, the enthusiasm's there. The bankers are excited to lend money. Everyone's feeling such a calmness. When he was elected again, the community of business owners just went, ah. Because there's been such static and so many things going on, and it's an erratic feeling. And he comes in and everyone say, "Good, at least we know because we know what we're gonna get. Whether you love him or not, you know what he's gonna do, which we love." And I just think he's I always say I'm a big Trump fan because he's the accumulation of everything American, everything good and bad. He's P.T. Barnum, he's Mickey Mantle, he's Neil Armstrong, that he's Jackie Robinson. So he's it. He's like step right up. So I don't know, but I love the Zoom. And like I said, urge everyone to be happy, be positive, because I work with thousands of clients around the country, and they're all ready to lend. They're ready to hire people. They want to expand. So if you're stuck in a Fortune 100 or 500 company and you think that it's safer there, come into my world where there's no DEI. You're going to work alongside Black people, Colombian people, gay people, men dressed as women, and we just want to get the work done.
Yeah.
So
I always say,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I always say to Maggie that the first order of business if Federacy ever gets big enough to have HR is to fire me.
We're just done at that point.
I'm like, HR's first job at Federacy Inc. will be firing me because I'm out.
And I tell people to watch you because you always say that you aren't a foreign policy expert. That's my favorite thing.
I'm not.
I know. That's great.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come back again.
Okay, one last why I love America for a reason from each of us. Yes, do you have a closing one?
Oh, I'm just bathing in the love of America, actually. It's weird what I love is that this company was started two-way, and it was to have this new solution to a media landscape that's been kind of broken, and then now I get to talk to people all over America and hear from them individually about their worries and hopes and fears and dreams, and that is amazing to me. That I love, and I do love the entrepreneurial spirit of this country. It is phenomenal. The sky is truly the limit. We have a guy who just started a freaking city, and he's trying to go to Mars, and that we need that. We are humans. We have got to strive. We have that striving. It's like such basic human nature, not just American, even though I think, but I agree. Like you look at every time Jaron and I watch any kind of period piece or anything, it's like, oh God, what a horrible time to be alive. What an exhausting time to be alive. And now we're ordering DoorDash and people are delivering things, and I still think we get to strive and better ourselves, and I hope we don't lose it all to laziness and social media and all these other forces that we talk about ad nauseum. But it was nice to just be positive. I do agree with Max Meyer, who started Arena Magazine, that we do need more like American propaganda, more pro-America and pro building propaganda.
Right. And I think one thing too that always strikes me is you always hear about people in other countries being like, oh, you can always spot an American because they're loud and they are wearing shorts. But they also are always like, and they smile all the time. They're always
shorts are disgusting.
They're always smiling at strangers, and I love that.
Yeah.
Like that says something to me.
Yeah. Well, did you have a closing one?
That was my closing.
Okay.
One. Yeah.
Well, you guys, this was a tall glass of water. And I thank you all for tuning in and chiming in. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to those of you who showed up and you raised your hands and spoke up. I know it's not easy to get up here and say anything. It's, you can be nervous and it's nerve wracking. So I appreciate that you're taking a risk and doing that. Even raising your hand on this Zoom is a risk. And it's so impressive to me that you guys do it week after week. Thank you to Two Way and their amazing team and platform. I do love them so much. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you thank you, Quest, for sponsoring this show and for making this possible and helping us. And please support the people who support us. Visit questhealth.com and use discount code RealMay25 and get 20% off your purchase. That's questhealth.com, code RealMay25 for 20% off. We are off next week. So everyone, please I just sounded like Obama. So everyone, please have an amazing and safe 4th of July. I went into my Obama mode. The Bridget bot turned on to Obama. Everyone, just have a safe 4th of July. Please enjoy yourself and get out there and try and love America. We'll be back Wednesday, July 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're with us on the Zoom, it's the same link every time, so bookmark it. Thank you for getting real with me, guys. I'm Bridget Fetisi. Don't forget to tip your server.